Hello, thank you so much for being here. I'm very happy to be here. This is the first time that I'm able to travel with the film. It's been a year since it came out, and given the situation, Thomas Jenkoe, who is the co-director of the film, and I, we were stuck in France, so it's a true joy to be there, and thank you so much for being so many. And I'll be happy to discuss the film with you afterwards. So I wish you a good screening, and thank you again.
Because you're from France, all the films I have seen of you were, I don't remember if I have seen films, but I have not seen all your films, but it was not far away, it was in France usually. So how come you end up there? And I think it's important because you are doing something with somebody. It's a real collaboration you are doing there.
Yes, we met Brian in Kentucky. It was by chance. We decided with Thomas that we would like to do a film together. We both worked on his film, my films, and we wanted to do to go discover America, but not away from the touristic towns and the touristic areas. And we thought, well, let's just go to a very small place in a remote area like Kentucky, which is not an interesting state for Americans or tourists. And we met Brian, he came to us, and we were speaking in French, so it was strange for him because he didn't hear much French people in his area, because Kentucky is not touristic at all. And so by chance we met him. He was very curious about us. He wanted to talk to us about what hillbilly meant, which we didn't know. And he said, well, this is not the real Kentucky. Kentucky is in Appalachia. You are in the West, and it's not the real Kentucky. So let me take you guys tomorrow. And that's kind of how it started. He took us the next day, and it was the beginning of a profound friendship at first. And then it became obvious after years of writing back to each other through email. We came back to spend a month, and we lived with him, and we discovered his text, and that's how we got to decide to do a film about him.
Okay, so at the beginning you had no project of film. It was just...
We wanted to, we left France, and we thought it would be great if we came up with an idea in America, but we didn't know. Like, we were very open-minded, and we were not sure we would find anything.
And you're talking about text. Which texts?
Well, Brian had all kinds of notebooks where he wrote poems just for himself, or he discovered a Tumblr also where he posted some poems that he had already written. So that's the poems we discovered.
Oh yes. And
we use, like, there is one in the film that is one of the first texts yeah.
Okay, and yes. So is it when you discovered the poem, you understood that anyway you became friends. Then you understood that you decided to do something with him, and then you discovered his poem, and you understood that it will be maybe you will be able to really to use his voice even more.
Yeah. It was already the first thing we thought about the film was for him to to have his text and to dive into his stream of consciousness, and then come out of it and do action, like scenes from the main his life.
Yeah.
So we worked, like, we asked him to write some text sometimes, and yeah.
But how did you work? Because you were in France, and did you came back regularly, or?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. We spent 7 months in total, but over like 4 years.
Okay, so you had the time to experience, then to come back, to take distance, to think a bit more.
Yes, it took us a lot of time to finance the film. Okay. So every time we came, we had the camera and the sound, but it was a long process. So we filmed it. That's why it's a fresque. It's like over the years, the children grow up, he gets older.
Yeah. And if you are talking about production, so at the beginning you went there just by yourself, paying your ticket and digging like that without any producer, and then you found?
Yeah, we found, like, the first trip we financed, and then we found a producer.
Okay, the one which is here.
Yes.
And who took the risk to accompany you for a few years, because it's not anything.
Yes. It was obvious that we needed to be there often, so he was okay with that, so we financed a film like that.
Yeah, it's rare.
Yes.
No, really, I stress it because usually lots of filmmakers are taking the risks, and the producer say, oh, it's too much. And when you have done a certain distance, I mean, you have dig enough and you are clear enough and you have enough material, then they step in and they finish with you.
Now we had the chance to have great producers that believed in the film and worked very hard for us to be there, to be able to finance the trips all the time.
Yeah, it's great. Yeah. And I came at the end, so it's funny because I remembered and then I had forgotten, and then I remembered again when I thought, so maybe 5 minutes of the film. But I absolutely adore the work on the sound and on the music in your film. And how come did you arrive to, because it's a big decision, it's really a huge decision.
Yeah, it was from the start we wanted to use music as a narrative instrument. So we collected a lot of information, but like we did interviews and all that stuff that you do in documentary, but we wanted to express things differently and to try to have all kinds of layers, like his voice, music, the editing, like the way we, sometimes it was not narrative, it was more associative editing, and the music helped. Like the musicians worked for us for 5 days during the editing part.
What? The musicians?
The musicians, the composers, that they came and they recorded the whole soundtrack, and it was a lot about echoes of the past, like Appalachian music, noise music. So we edited with the music.
Oh, that's a great.
We wanted to try that in documentary, which is not that common to use that much music.
I mean, it's giving so much. It's like it's fictionalizing.
It is more used in fiction, but it tells. Like sometimes it helps to have a dialogue with what is seen, and sometimes it adds. It's kind of a romantic film, I think, in the meaning of the romantic, not love, but the true romantic style. And there is a melancholy, and sometimes there is. It's like for the scene with the dead fish, it starts as a comedy scene, but then with Brian's solitude, and it was like kind of because we stayed so many years that we really felt that the situation evolved and not decreased, but. Got worse, and Brian was so sensitive that we could feel him becoming more and more alone and dark, and so we tried to give to tell that story, his inner perception of what was going on, and so we used that in editing in different ways to dialogue with the images also. So sometimes we had to not invent a language, but kind of invent our own language in this film so that it can tell a lot of things that are not shown or said specifically, but that hopefully the audience can get, like the fact that there is this moment with the music of there is a faraway echo of harmonica and all this, like these persons that are kind of like wandering around on the hills, and when we wanted to, and there is one small part of a poem where he says he talks about there is a meth epidemic, like I don't know if meth is a thing in Europe, I'm not sure, but it's kind of like crack, and so it's really a big thing in America and especially in Kentucky. and we had like an hour of interview about that, but we tried to tell, like to express that, but with just one sentence of the poem that says on the hill with the methadone, and like it's just one sentence that references to that, and the whole movement kind of express the fact that they are kind of ghosts wandering in a desert that used to be their land, that still is the land, but that has so many layers of history that are gone and that will never come back. So we had to, like the music helped also because usually, I mean, in documentary, like for instance, my last documentary was more like, you know, blocks of sequences that slowly create a narration. But with this film, I don't know if it's because we shot for so many years. Maybe we tried a lot of things also, and we realized that the first editing we did, it was like that, and it just didn't work. Everything was it was not working like that. So we had to come up with other ideas, like the second act. It's a lot of one scene opens and then another and another, and they're all mixed in together, and the dialogue, and at the end you have you come back to the two men with the dusting the deers, and so we had to try to create this style that is not something that we're used to do. But we were much inspired by how Terrence Malick in his films after The Tree of Life, how he edits, because he jump cuts, and you switch from one character to the other, or one day with another, and it's kind of like the movement of life, but it's all it's not logical. But when they're good, the films, because they're not always, but the ones that are really good, it created something that we were very much interested in to try in our own way in the documentary.
Yeah, I was really thinking of this. It's not logical, and usually life is not logical. And when you want to make things fit, it's not working. But it's something that we want to do to reassure us as human, but it's not working. And you were very, very brave to really go and try this.
Well, I think, thank you, but I think it's more that we say we work with what's real, but what's like, I'm very much interested in this word, because what's real is not just this chair or this you that are watching me talk. It's like you're listening to me, but then at some point you're thinking about, like, I don't know, something you've experienced like months ago, and then you switched. So to me, trying to approach documentary in this way, to try to create a reality that can be interiorized, or like your inner self, which has a different logic, and it was all I think about that, because we were really, as we discovered Brian's text, and we really wanted to really dive into his conscious, like, you know, all the Faulkner or Virginia Woolf, all this. We were inspired by literature and the streams of consciousness, this whole concept. So it is in a way reality as well.
Yeah. The way you translated, or you created it, recreated it in a way, is extremely inspiring. Anyway, to me as a cineast, you know, really. So it's I don't know for you in the public. I wanted linked to this also. You said earlier about, I don't remember exactly what you said, but something like association editing, or what? Can you explain a bit more, because I guess, but maybe not everybody is familiar, you know?
Well, I say that because, like, for instance, there is this part where he talks about his brother who passed away, and when we edited, it was more like Thomas is more cerebral, but I'm more instinctive. So I like when I try to edit to give a direction, and when there is these words about his dead brother, and he says that my father was terrified by the loss, and the fact to arrive to these words showing the horses, and there is one white horse that is kind of strangely looking apathic, well, not really, but like without emotion, and then suddenly you have the shot with the black horse that is kind of like struggling in his box, and so that was kind of what I meant with associative editing, is that it doesn't necessarily show what it is said or what the moment is about, but the interaction between all the words, the sound, the music, the images create an association of ideas that can express, for instance, in this case, the grief or the impossible grief, and the pain where you lose someone and you're fighting against that feeling. So. It was not all, like the whole film is not edited like that. Like as you can see, there are some scenes that are more like scenes that we shot like that when they, I don't know, the scenes with all the kids, the scene with his friend that walks around, and there is the cemetery, and so it was all about finding the right balance. To me, I don't know how you feel about that, but to me, when you edit a film, it's very much of a musical experience. It's really about creating rhythm, movements, ruptures, and it was for us. It was, we always were oscillating between these moments, which are more almost like how a poem is constructed, and some are more like a novel is constructed. So it was a very difficult time. It was amazing because we had a super editor, but we were so stressed out because it was we had to be so precise to find the right balance for the film not to collapse, and so we were editing. We were kind of in a rush as well because that's we how we have obligations to be ready for that date or that. So, we wanted to finish the film. We had no more budget to finish the film later, so we really worked very hard to do that and to be able to find the structure, because we filmed for so many years that we had so many stories we could have told, and we chose this one path through the footage. Like we had 130 hours, so it's a lot of material, but we thought we would do just this one pass through the film.
Excuse me, I just want to ask you a short question. In the beginning of the film, the principal character said like in 1 year in Kentucky just it was born just one person or something like this in a year, just with one. So this is kind of population very decreased, I think. Is it true, this kind of thing? Because it's very weird for me. Like, is this the situation in that area?
Well, he says that there hasn't been one has not grown by as much as a single person in a single year. So I think it's not only the birth, but like people coming in to live there. So this is an area that is very deserted. Like it's deserted. Like the people don't have any jobs. Like it's really a poor area that is they struggle to find something to do and to get paid for, because there are no more mines. They have the chance to be farmers, but it's really a specific case in that area. So some children are born, of course, but the population is leaving to find jobs elsewhere. So it's an isolated area as well. There is no. It's an area that has always been very insular. Like you have all the hills, so you can't really have thousands of houses, and so it's an area that is decreasing in terms of population, because even though they keep on having kids, at some point they must leave to find a better life in a way. So that's the whole dilemma there is. They are completely passionate about their land, but it's becoming impossible to stay, and it's impossible to live. So it's kind of the whole dilemma of this population.
So I want to ask if the guy, he ever tried to leave the place in his life, and also about the color of the film. How did you decide to use this gamma?
I'm sorry, I didn't quite understand the first one.
The first one is if he ever wanted to leave, or if he tried to leave, because he said that some people, some friends of him left and they came back. What is his relationship to the land, and if he ever could do that?
He didn't really leave. He left. He tried to go to college, but he was still in Kentucky, and he came back. I think he has never been outside of Kentucky, or just once or twice, and so his relationship is that he's kind of struggling, because he's very bright and curious, and I think he's kind of in and out of the hillbilly culture. Like that's also why he's so tortured. I think is that we were laughing. We called him always the prophet, because he has this way of seeing bigger and knowing much more things that other people know. So he can't leave. I mean, we've known him for it was 2013, and then we met him, and he's kind of stuck. So I think he's representative of his people in a way, because he's marked for life as a hillbilly. He can't leave, and at the same time he's miserable where he is. So that's his relationship. And about the colors, we tried to. We wanted to have to keep this kind of icy blue tint in the first part, because when we watched the footage, it was clear that it was kind of frozen, and there was this strong light, but that was very cold. So we tried to, we shot in a format that when you shoot, you see everything is kind of gray, but it records all the information you will need to then choose the colors that you want when you're in post-production. So we worked with the color grader to have this kind of icy cold light in the beginning, and then spring comes and it's like more yellow and green, and then summer comes and it's more red, and at the end it's kind of the dawn, so it goes back to the black, and it ends in total black with the little boy that is kind of surrounded by obscurity and the black of the black screen. So that's kind of how we worked on the... we had I don't know if you've heard of this photographer, but he's called Mark Cohen, and we were very inspired by his photographs. He used his camera, he could shot a face just showing the teeth, or shoot just an elbow, and he has a very instinctive way of taking photographs, and he also has underexposed shots with deep but not bright colors. So we try to I'm always impressed by Antonioni, the Red Desert, you see, it's like painting sometimes, and the modern world has less plain colors, so it's hard to work on that when you edit a documentary, but we try to dialogue with that, to try to find some colors to interact with on the image that we had.
About the scene when he starts saying that they're ignorant and ends with inbred, my question would be that could that be considered a way of survival somehow? maybe it's linked to the first question.
Survival for him, you mean? To say that, or? Oh no, you mean to why they would be like that? Why they would be inbred and?
Kind of.
Well, he says that. I think as a provocation and also as a statement to say, yes, I know the prejudice, I know the insult, and yes, it's true. But so what? You know, I think that's how he meant that. So it's true that he says that they're inbred, which means that basically they're the cousins of cousins. They always are mixed up together, which is like there are a lot of Richies in the area. Like it is a Kentucky that was interesting for us when we first knew the state. Is that it's really a strange state because it was very much from the beginning a state that defied all the time the federal state, and there was these clans with like two families. There are some famous feuds, so families shooting each other for decades and all that. So it's true that it's an area that is very insular and that has built itself on generations of the same families. But he goes very far, and I wouldn't say that it's true, and I wouldn't say, I don't know if it was for survival reasons, but probably the pioneers, they had to like, this is a very unwelcoming terrain. Like now they have roads, but like the grandfather that you see in the film, when he was a child, there were like no roads. They were living almost like the first Americans that came. So it was a very brutal and quick evolution. That's what he said when he said there were cavemen right up until I was born. He says that because indeed his father's generation, Brian's father's generation, were really living life that is impossible to imagine now. That they have roads and phones and all that, but it still is a very insular area. Like you can't really, like if you want to go to just to buy some groceries, you have to do like 20 miles or something like that. So, yeah.
Thank you very much for the movie. Quick questions. One is also like in the description of the movie, and it comes up, but very briefly in the movie, that hillbillies were voters of Trump, and I was wondering, but the movie does not go more in depth on this, and I was wondering if it was a conscious choice not to go more in depth on this, or if you had discussions about this during the movie, making process. And the second question is that I admire from the movie that there were broad perspectives of different people and different generations, and also like children, but very little on about the women, or it's just indirectly the perspective of the women comes into the movie. And I was wondering, was it harder to get in contact and get work during the movie with the women, or it was simply not the focus of your work? Thank you.
Thank you. About Trump, yeah, it was kind of a conscious choice because we couldn't be unconscious, because we started the film, it was under Obama administration, but then Trump arrived and suddenly we were asked to go film the Trump voters. So we tried to kind of stay cool, like ice cold, and not give in to the passion that it was raising. And we tried, like when we first got there, it was Obama, and we felt like we were in the middle of nowhere. We were not even in America, and there were like not really talks about politics, because a lot of them are depoliticized. I don't know if you say that, but a lot of them don't vote. They have their own rules and all that. But so Trump, we tried to put it in the film because we could not talk about it, and because it is true that it is a coal mining area, and Trump said, "I will bring back coal to the miners." So this was a major thing for them. But we really tried to make a film that is more profound and more politic in a more profound way, and that talks about decades and not just 4 years, because we knew he was gonna be at least, at worst, 8 years. So we didn't want, I mean, we didn't think that, but I mean, we had the intuition that it was not our subject, but it was definitely part of the landscape. So we tried when we shot, we had some things about Trump, but they were kind of boring in a way, because it's like, right, this guy, he looks like a Trump elector, yes, he is, and he has this great punchline, but what's the point? We know when we see him, like we can feel his. So we really tried to be careful with the easiness of that kind of subject, and try to talk about, like to create a film that would talk about longer movements and evolutions. And also because Brian, he's an anarchist, his sister is Democrat, his brother is for Trump, some don't care. Like, it was way more complex and nuanced than just the Trump voters. So that's how we ended up working on the film. So we have this character that goes to this Confederate cemetery, and when he wanted us to go there, and he's very proud of being a Southern, and the whole history of the South doesn't seem to bother him, which is shocking, of course. But when we filmed him, there was something on his face that was suddenly more complex, because he looks at the flag and the statue and it looked like he kind of understood, or his face was reflecting kind of something that was more interesting than if we had filmed him saying other things about Trump. There was you could feel he kind of knew that he was on the bad side, and that he knew it. But anyway, we tried to also leave that a bit open and not too closed. And about women, it was kind of, it's more what we edited than what we filmed, because we mainly focused on Brian's inner self and his encounters, and the children alone. So Brian, his ex-wife is not there, as he said in the poem, so he's left with his twins, but he doesn't see their mother. And there is Beth, which is the sister, and Mildred, that is the grandmother that we see, but they are not lead characters, because it was more, as I said, we chose one path. So it was not ideological, or it was not a choice to erase women. It was more a choice to focus on Brian. And the fact is that the scenes that were the scene where he acted, he was with men, because I guess he has less women friend, and his sister was not really there because she was always in her room, so it was kind of like adapting to what we filmed, and also choosing to show the children on their own and without their parents, and that's why we ended up having, and also because when we edited, we had the two teenage girls had such an importance that we actually didn't realize that there were more men than women, because we had characters that were girls, so we were not that aware of that until later. Also because we had filmed women, it was not a choice to because the men are better, or because it's a man's world, but it's more like this choosing the scene that tell the whole story as humans, not just men or women.
Yes.
Can I ask you just about the two teenagers from the film? What happened with them? Because they had some dreams, or they wanted to they had some dreams, and I want to know what happened. If you know, if you made the film for 4 years, maybe.
We still are in touch with them, of course. They are kind of our dearest friends, and so we have not been able to go there because of the COVID. But for now, they're still at the same point because they are teenagers. So they have like what we shot. It was in 2019, so it's 2 years later. So they're still in high school. So I think it's the same situation, but. Carolina, which is the brown-haired girl, she was a foster kid, so she came from a city, a big city, as big as it gets in Kentucky, but it was interesting because she came and she was kind of the city girl, and so it was interesting to have the counterpoint of Katie, which was really a hillbilly that lived there and that grew up like that. So that was interesting to have their duet because the reactions of Carolina were completely putting in light Katie, that is already experiencing what Brian talks about at just 12. She's just 12 and she already says that. So, but so far it's they will be in the future. It's still early to say because they are still young. Thank you so much. Thank you so much for staying and for being there. It means a lot.
Yeah.
And thank you, Vanina, and
so much
the festival, everyone.
Yes.
In the team.
Car
and every person.
Yes.
This has been a great time for me. Thank you.